Welcome to In Her Voice, a podcast created for women who listen to and live by their deepest wisdom, their inner voice. This was made for you, the woman who feels pulled to more, to lead, to create, to dream, and to be a world changer. My name is Kelly Covert, and I am an inner voice coach. Join me here each week as we explore what it means to reach for your inspired potential, all while honoring your worthiness each and every day. Hello, hello. Oh my goodness. How are you guys? It is spring here in New York, finally, although we did get 8 inches of snow the other day. And I am just so excited to be here with you. I know I tell you that all of the time, but is that something that you can hear too much? I don't think so. I'm Kelly Covert, as you know, and this is In Her Voice, and I have an amazing guest for you today. My friend Sara Intonato is on the podcast today to talk about how to deepen your practice so you can be more of you. This is the exact kind of conversation that I like to be having on In Her Voice, because this is really about taking a tool that can help you listen to your inner voice, that can help you show up in this world as you were born to show up. And you take that tool and you hone it and you use it and you practice it and you take it deeper. That's what we're talking about today. And I am just so thrilled to have Sara on the show with me today. Before we get to that, I want to remind you guys that I have a new coaching program that I am rolling out. I'm so excited about it. The clients that I have that are using this are just beyond thrilled. I'm not kidding you. It's become my favorite way to coach people. And it surprised even me how much that I loved it. And it is my Inner Voice Coach in Your Pocket program. And how it works is we have a face-to-face session, 30 minutes once a month. And for the rest of the month, we are connected by Voxer. And if you're not familiar with the Voxer app, it's a super cool and free app that you can use to leave voice messages for people. And then you listen to them in real time, or you can listen to them and go back and re-listen if you want, whenever you want. And it's so fantastic because it's really giving my clients an opportunity to verbally process things, which is a powerful tool. Speaking of tools, really, really powerful. And it helps people to stay connected to the goal, to stay connected to listening to your inner voice. And I am there every single day to support you, to hold you up, to create a space for you to remember that you can do this, and that not only can you do it, you need to do it. You must be doing this in order to live the life that you are meant to live. And so if you are interested in learning more about Inner Voice Coaching Your Pocket, I would encourage you to go to my website, kellycovert.com/inner voice coach. I think that's the link. Oh my gosh, I should know this before I do it. And if that's not the link, you can just click right through on the podcast app that you're listening to. I'll have a live link in the notes, and you can learn more about the Inner Voice Coaching Your Pocket program, and you can sign up for a discovery call with me to see if this would be right for you. And I cannot wait to connect with you and to meet you and to learn more about the amazing woman that you are. Now, let's get to Sara. Let me read you her bio. Sara Intonato is an Ashtanga yoga instructor with 15 years of teaching experience. She is the director of the Mysore-style Ashtanga yoga program at Absolute Yoga in Woodbury, New York, which is the only traditional Ashtanga program in Nassau County. And she teaches private one-on-one lessons. She also hosts multiple retreats per year at local and international venues and teaches an online yoga philosophy course. Teaching yoga is her gift, and she has made a business out of creating every opportunity she can to share the healing capabilities of yoga. A perpetual student herself, Sara continues to make annual trips to India and study at KPJAY I in Mysore. She lives in Long Island, New York with her husband and 2 children. So you guys, oh my gosh, you're going to love this interview so much. Let's get right to it. Sara Intonato, I'm so excited to welcome you to In Her Voice.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really stoked to be here.
Yeah. So we met each other. We've never met in person, but we've met virtually. And in a business group that we're in, the Brave Society. And I am just so excited to bring your wisdom to my audience because you are a meditation teacher, you're a yoga teacher, and what we're going to talk about today is really the idea of deepening your practice so you can share more fully, so you can be more fully you. So I thought that we would start with kind of defining what we mean by practice.
Oh, that's great because practice can look so different from person to person. I'll start with my practice every day is combined of yoga, meditation. I journal every day. For me, writing makes things real. And I know not everybody is like that, but I'm very connected to when I put something down on paper, a strong intention has been set. Mm-hmm. And for me, that's an integral part of my day as well. Even getting a good night's sleep can be a practice that you work towards in your life. So for me, my non-negotiables are yoga, meditation, journaling, and good sleep. But they certainly vary from person to person. And do you have practices? I know you journal regularly. Do you have practices which are different but also integral to you?
Oh, yeah, 100%. So it's interesting because my listeners know this. I create for every single month. In fact, I just did mine. We're recording on March 1 today. For March, I create a practice tracker because for me, my practices ebb and flow. Like I need different ones every single month. So journaling is my go-to. Like I always have that. That's sort of what I call my essential. But this month I'm focusing on sleep because I haven't been feeling like I've been sleeping well. And it's not because I don't prioritize sleep, but I feel like I just haven't been sleeping great lately. And so I'm going to experiment with essential oils or maybe using a different supplement or getting off of my phone earlier, different sorts of things to really make my sleep better. And then I have other practices. Like for me, a lot is just like, okay, checking in with my inner voice, like having moments in the day where I just stop and I take a breath and I become present to how I'm feeling, to what my inner voice is saying, and to what I need to be doing. So I think it sounds like yours is sort of like very sort of the same all the time. And mine, I have these elements that are the same, but it really is flexible based on what I'm feeling like I need to.
I love that. And I think mine tend to be the same day to day because I find that once I've done those things, I'm able to do what you just mentioned. I'm able to pause in the day and check in. I have the awareness that I need to connect to my true self amidst all the chatter, amidst all the distractions. And I find that when I don't have practices in my day that help me to do that, I'm not as successful. I'm much more susceptible to getting caught up in other people's energy or the distractions and stimuli around me. So for me, that's what my practices are meant to do. Put me in a state so that I'm available to check in with myself throughout the day. And it's actually a great segue into meditation when you said you just take time to pause and check in, because I think meditation to many people is sort of this grand, trippy idea that they think they have to go and light all the candles and sit beneath the full moon and, have all their crystals out and do it for an hour. And that's not true. In fact, one of the most prolific meditation teachers, Pema Chodron, who's a female monk, by the way, often says, if you can pause at any point in your day and take 3 deep breaths, that will give you the ability to reconnect to yourself at any time. And I love reminding people of that because it's so simple. We all have that time. It's a really gentle reminder that it's a choice. which I think is so important.
I love that. And, I think I've told the story before about my own journey with meditation, but for the longest time, I didn't want to call what I was doing meditation. I had this weird hang up about the word for some reason. And I called it like all of these different things. And finally, a friend of mine was like, you're really just meditating. And I'm like, really? She's like, yeah. So I think that it's easy to get caught up. Like you said, it's easy to get caught up in sort of the ideal of what the practice is, and lose sight of what it's for or how to use it for you.
A friend of mine who has been meditating for 30 years told me that he just calls it sitting. Yeah. And he would often ask when I was a new meditator, especially, hey, did you sit today? And it just took the pressure off. It made it sound really approachable and really easy and joyful. And for someone like me, who is a high achiever, who can totally get wrapped up in trying to do things right and perfectly, I found that to be really freeing. I just have to sit down. And what happens after I sit down is so much less important, whether it goes well or it's difficult. Doesn't matter, as long as I just sit down and make the time to do it.
I love that, because really, who doesn't have 3 minutes, 5 minutes to just sit down?
We all do, and yet it's always fascinating the excuses that everyone makes when they're not ready to approach it.
Yeah. Why do you think that so many people have resistance to that?
Because when you are meditating or sitting, whatever you want to call it, or doing any type of spiritual practice which requires your attention, there's no escape. You're going to feel your feelings. You're going to see what's beneath the surface. And sometimes that's beautiful. And other times it can be really intense, or it can provoke change, which can feel really intimidating. And I think sometimes this is why you'll see people have no problem sitting down and numbing out scrolling on social media for 10 minutes at the end of the day. But the idea of sitting and just breathing for 5 to 10 minutes sounds unapproachable, or they can't justify it in their mind because it's not busy work. And
it's
sometimes
not getting something done.
Right. It's not doing the doing. And when you're addicted to doing, or you just don't know any different, sitting for just a few minutes can seem unfamiliar. It can seem challenging. It can feel guilt-inducing if you're used to doing everything for everybody else. So I think it's just something that people have to be ready for. And if they're not ready, no judgment. But that's when you'll see the excuses come up.
Yeah, it's so fascinating to me. And what else I find people, have excuses around is like, well, I don't believe in practices, or, I don't think I'm the kind of person who can do that. And what I notice though, and what I ask people is like, well, what do you do first thing in the morning? Like when your alarm clock goes off, what do you do? And people will say, well, I pick up my phone and I check my Instagram and I check my email. And those are practices too. But are those the practices that are going to help you live the way that you want to live? I mean, it's a different kind of practice, but we are, everything that we do just about is a habit that becomes part of who we are. And we can just as easily create habits that are going to take us to the next level in living.
Definitely.
So good. So good. So when you are in a regular practice, how do you feel that creates space for you to be more of who you are?
Well, for example, yoga and meditation give me a sense of quiet. Journaling is different for me. Journaling gives me a great space to access visions that I might have for myself and my future, goals or dreams or things which I don't necessarily give myself time to ponder during the course of the day. I find that journaling gives me the space to say, what do I really want? Or what do I need to release? And I think when I work with yoga and meditation, the way I describe it frequently is that they actually are very calming for your nervous system. Even physical yoga practice, even a pose like headstand, for example, has an incredibly calming effect on the nervous system. And for me, I feel that's why it allows me to find steadiness in myself and move on with the day with a deeper connection to that steadiness instead of feeling a frenetic energy or a distracted energy. And it's powerful stuff. And I often remind people yoga is an ancient science. It's been around for thousands of years now because it works. This is not a fad. Meditation is not a fad. They're not things that we necessarily had scientific studies or research done around until recently, but they have withstood the test of time because they work. And that's why they work. It's not just stretching. It's not just feeling good. It's actually going into your nervous system, helping to process what's new, helping to release old trauma or emotions, and find a place of steadiness and equanimity. So I always sound a little bit like a one-trick pony when people come to me with problems, because I don't want to give them fads. I don't want to give them things that don't work. I want to give them tools which they can integrate in their life and have a real connection with and see results from. So for me, that's why I resonate with these practices so much. And that's what they look like for me. I usually do them in the morning so that I see my day through a different filter. Mm-hmm. And on the flip side, I think that there's no such thing as a bad time to practice. When you can be consistent is the time that you should do your practice. So for me, that's the morning when the house is quiet, when I'm not fully into my work day or other responsibilities. I feel like I have the space for myself to do it. But that's what it looks like for me. And whatever testing other people have to do to find out what is the best time of day for me. Maybe I need them before bed so that I sleep better. Maybe I need them on my lunch break at the office so that I can power down for a few minutes and reconnect to myself before the second half of the day. So I always like to remind people that what works for me is not necessarily the Bible for everybody. Mm-hmm. It works, but that I do it because it works for me.
Yeah, I think that's so good. And I think, too, the other thing that comes to mind when you're developing your practices is thinking about what kind of space you need to do them in. So that's a big one for me because I get up and then I immediately, if my kids aren't already up, I wake them up, and then we have the busyness of getting ready for school and doing all of those things. And I need quiet. Yeah. Like I need the energy of my house to be calm in order to get into the space of doing that. And that's really hard for me when my kids are home. And so I don't, even if they're asleep, it's hard for me. So I don't do it first thing in the morning. I don't get up earlier to do it because I know that I can kind of get that crazy energy, the teenage boy energy out of my house. And then I can kind of take a deep breath and get into my space.
For sure. I found that I love early mornings because the vibration is so quiet and I'm rested. My brain is quiet. I haven't gotten into my day yet, but I have energy to spend on myself. That said, living in a cold climate during the winter, I find that I fluctuate a little bit with the seasons. So in the winter, when it's cold and dark, I tend to have a schedule similar to yours. Sometimes I'll see clients early in the morning, but I tend to do my own practices once the house is quiet and people have left for school and whatnot. But in the summer, when it's sunny and warm at 5 a.m., I love getting up early. And I have come to know that there's actually a Sanskrit name for the hour before dawn, and it's called Brahma Muhurta, and it's called the holy hour because it is that ideal time where the energy vibration is most supportive for spiritual practice. If you ever are awake at that time, you'll notice that aside from maybe the birds, there are no cars driving around. The energy is very still. And this morning it was snowing here in Long Island. And so when I was up looking out the window, all you really saw was the snow. And it felt so centering and steadying. If we're able to do our practices during that time. In yogic tradition, they would say it's the most supportive time, the least distracting time of day energetically. But that certainly does not mean it's the only one. But I do find that when I'm up at that time, I really love it. And I know it's not for everyone. My husband is not a morning person. So that's why I always tell people, do them when you can do them. Find your practice time and stick with it. But for me, when it's warm and I'm not freezing cold, I love being up early for that reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think don't let perfect be the enemy of good, because it is so easy to go down that road when it comes to your practices.
Yes, it is so easy. And I think that there's a fine art of stepping into a middle ground. I've had to coach many of my students out of the habit of all or nothing. Oh, it's 11 a.m. I usually do my practice early in the morning, but I had a sick kid and they're at a work meeting, and now it's 11 a.m. and maybe I should just bag the day because I didn't do it right or in my normal routine. I always tell them, just throw your mat down and get on it. If that's a shorter practice than usual, let it happen. If you don't have the amount of energy you normally have, so you hold back a little bit, that's okay. Do it. Any practice is better than none. So to translate that into journaling, maybe you normally journal for an hour in your day, but today you're only journaling for 15 minutes. It's better to do those 15 minutes than to do nothing. And I think that when we can embrace this concept of gray area, we embrace sustainability. Because these practices only work if you do them. And if you wait for life to be perfect every day to get your practices done, well, guess what? They're never going to happen.
Good
or
luck,
they're only
right?
going to happen sometimes or once in a while. And I think the results of these practices are cumulative. So I would rather you practice, and I tell this to my students, 6 days a week, every week, even if one of those days is 15 minutes, even if one of those days is in the evening before bed because you just had a crazy day. I would rather you do that than skip that day. Mm-hmm. Especially when these practices are new and you're cultivating habits. It's not a centerpiece of your day yet. It's not as ritualistic as brushing your teeth. That's ultra important to consider, because when you're building these habits, you want to build them with a healthy mindset.
Mm-hmm. I love that. So let's say now that we've built the habits, you know, that we're doing our practices on a consistent basis. I'd love to dig in now to how can we go deeper? How can we dig in more? Does that take more time? Does that take more energy? What does that look like?
It can. My answer is get a teacher or a mentor in your practices, especially when you think of something like meditation and you call it sitting, for example. You think, well, why would I need help with that? I'm just sitting. And yet many people quit because it feels hard or their mind is distracted and they don't get their questions answered. They don't get the support that they need. And there's only so far you can go by yourself. And I am this way too. I go see my guru in India every year because I can maintenance myself when I'm home, but it's hard to go further if you don't have someone showing you the way, if you don't have someone illuminating the path for you in whatever discipline you are working in. And I think that's something that is lacking in our culture. Having been to many other cultures and seen how there's a real connection between the generations, I think that in America, there's a big, I call it like a superhero epidemic. People think they have to do everything themselves, especially women. You have to go to work, you have to cook dinner, you have to look good doing it, you have to do your workout, you have to write in your journal, and you have to do it perfectly and on your own. And I just don't think that's real life. And having seen other cultures where extended families help raise children, and it doesn't matter how old you are, you still have a guru or a mentor. I think that's a huge lesson I've learned is sign on for the support that you need. Invest the time and the energy and the money you need to be successful and build sustainability in your practices. Is it really worth it to not do that and then feel unfulfilled, uninspired, unsuccessful for a long time? And that's what I see when I have many students come to me they've done yoga before and they've broken off on their own, or they haven't had a mentor and they feel really stuck and they've spent a long time being stuck. And I just think life is too short to spend a long time being stuck.
Well, first of all of that, yes, all of it. And I think that this is so interesting. You talk about the superhero epidemic and the cost of not asking for help is so steep.
Yes.
And, you know, we have all of these reasons and excuses for why we aren't willing to invest in ourselves, to go deeper, to learn more. It could be time, it could be money, it could be lots of excuses. But what is the cost of not doing it?
The cost of not doing it is not really connecting to the life that you want. Even if all you want is a feeling of more space or more contentment in your life. Maybe you want huge things like a 7-figure business, but this is what we're facing. And it's so interesting because I was conversing with a friend of mine recently who is a KonMari specialist. So she goes into people's homes and helps them declutter. And I've worked with her. She's amazing. But she was telling me recently that she's started using recovery talk in a lot of her client work because people are using stuff as a way to numb out. And I think people's excuses are hiding what's really beneath the surface. And they'll say, oh, I can't invest the money or I can't invest the time. But what they're really afraid of is changing. And what the changes might do to other people in their lives or the feelings they might feel going along with these changes. I think that what people say is the challenge is never really the challenge 90% of the time.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And they're not willing to like recognize what they need.
Yeah.
To move through it. I think it's so weird because as much as in our society, it's like, you know, you get the gold star if you do all of the things yourself, but you feel like shit the whole time that you're doing it.
Oh, yes.
And, you know, like, I just want to like shake people and say, you don't feel good. It doesn't matter what everyone sees you doing. It doesn't matter what it looks like. It only matters what you feel like.
It's true.
Inside, that's the only thing that matters.
It's absolutely true. And what's the cost of doing the when then game? When summer vacation comes, then I'll take the time for myself. When I have more money, then I'll invest in getting the help that I need. When I retire, that's a big one. When I retire, then I will change my habits because I'll have the time then. So what you're essentially saying is, I don't deserve it now. Or I'm not good enough now.
I'm not
make
worth
the changes
it.
that I want. I'm not worth it.
Yeah.
It's so toxic.
It really is. And I think what I'm just as we talk, I'm seeing this relationship where people aren't feeling worthy, but they're not willing to give themselves what they're worth. You know, we have to be willing to acknowledge our worth and say, this is what I need in order to feel that way. So we can live into that. It's there for us, but only if you own it, only if you take it.
That's right. And I remind people all the time that you can baby step into this. Meditate for 5 minutes every day. That's a big step that you can take now. It doesn't cost you any money. And you will get so much from just doing that, as opposed to playing the when then game. I'll do it later. When? If you want contentment now, take that small step, a powerful step, but a small step toward contentment now. Don't wait.
Yeah. Don't wait. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. Well, and when we're talking about deepening, I love this that you say, go get a teacher, get a mentor. Another thing that came up for me, and you mentioned this as something that helps you with your day, that is intention. Yes. How does intention come into play when you're trying to deepen your practice?
I think for everyone it can look very different, but an intention that I found myself taking on frequently is the intention that my efforts today are enough. it helps me to detach from the results of my efforts. So I practice Ashtanga yoga, which is an ancient method of yoga. There's no music. You're really focused on your breathing. And it can be applied very gently and very therapeutically. It can also get very challenging. And I've been doing this for many years. So I'm at a point in my practice now where I've recently learned a lot of new things. And with that newness comes the feeling of difficulty. And it's hard. And I've really had to tell myself that you just getting on your mat and just taking those breaths and putting forth your best effort is enough. It's okay if the results aren't there yet, or you're not able to master the pose yet, or you're only able to take 3 breaths in it instead of 5 because it's so intense. Just do it, as opposed to, I can't do that yet, I'm going to avoid it today. Mm-hmm. So the intention for me of saying whatever I'm capable of giving today is enough has been a really powerful intention from someone like me who is a recovering perfectionist, I say. Mm-hmm. And
all the recovering perfectionists, raise your hands.
Hello, that's me. So for me, that's a very powerful intention. And it actually allows me to be more consistent and more disciplined. People think of discipline as being a hard word, or sometimes people think of it as being masculine or aggressive. I don't think of it that way at all now that I've set this intention of whatever I'm able to give is enough. I think of it, I visualize it as putting my effort on the altar of my higher self as an offering. This is an offering to my higher self today. And if you go to church or you go to a temple and someone offers up a flower or 5 cents or $100,000, all of those offerings are received. It's never turned away. Oh, you're only donating 5 cents. That's not enough. You're only donating a flower. That's not enough. So I remind myself to look at it as an offering to my higher self. And it takes the pressure off, and it takes the aggressive energy, which some people approach disciplines or routines with, away. So for me, that's a really powerful intention, but it can be any intention which speaks to you that is going to help you find sustainability.
Mm-hmm. I love that when you said that, my efforts today are enough. I got chills because so often, and I know that there are a lot of you guys listening who feel this, we feel the fear of failing so deeply that we don't even begin.
Yeah.
And that this creates a path for more. You know, when you're willing to just put some effort in, regardless of what that outcome looks like, then you're going to get a lot further than if you don't even begin.
100%.
You know? So like you said, it's baby steps. And even if you meditate an hour every day, there's always a way to go deeper. And so maybe that looks like your intention. Maybe that looks like hiring a teacher. But when we go deeper, what happens is we can be more of who we were born to be, right?
Yes. And also it helps to remove the judgment.
Ooh, yeah, that's good.
Talk
more about that.
I have many students who are overachievers or high achievers, we'll say. They have very full lives and they're committed people. They're not the kind of people who need me to crack the whip on them. They're cracking the whip on themselves. And one of the testimonials I collected recently from one of my favorite students, who's a male, and he is in his late 60s, said, first, Sara never scolds me or judges me if I have not been diligent in my efforts for any reason. And that made me feel so good because instead, we've built positive reinforcements into him doing his practices. And then, as you know, the practices reinforce themselves because you feel good doing them. And you can remember the change in yourself that you just received from your practice. So you want to do it again. But when people are new and they don't have that self-reinforcing cycle in place, it's up to your teacher or your mentor to help the reinforcement process take root. And I loved that he felt a non-judgmental presence from me. And as somebody who used to be and sometimes still is really hard on herself, I really found that to be a testament to all the work I've done on myself of this is enough. Because I remember a time in my life when people used to call me really judgmental. And I'm sure it's because I was judging myself. So therefore, I was judging everybody else because that's all I knew how to do. Right. And as I consciously changed my intentions around what I was doing, my energy changed and other people picked up on that. And it's a process that takes time. This is not an instant gratification thing. But I really felt like that was something I notched as a win in my win book. Like, okay, the work I'm doing around being less judgmental of myself is spilling over into the work I do with others. And A+, Sarah, that's what you're going for.
Gold
and I
star.
think, gold star. And I think that I'm sure many of your listeners here are high achievers, people who want more from their lives. And I think it's twofold for me. One, yes, you can have more in your life. You deserve to have more. You deserve to have everything in your life that you want. It's okay to not be satisfied where you are today or with the status quo. It's okay to want more. And at the same time, stop judging yourself on that journey toward more.
Mm-hmm. That's a really hard balance point to find for a lot of people. And it's something that I feel like I'm edging closer to every single day. And part of what helps me get there are my practices.
100%.
And the other thing that I wanted to just give you a chance to talk about, because I think it's really important, and that is the power of removing yourself from everyday life for a time, for a retreat. And I know that you lead retreats, you have, you lead long ones, you lead one day ones, but like talk about how something like that can also take you deeper.
I love leading retreats so much because you see people shift in front of your eyes when they are away from the doing that they usually do and are pouring that energy back into themselves. You'll see them have realizations. You'll see them really acknowledge the things that they're doing well, which maybe they've never done. You'll see them want more and make the effort to put in place the tools they need to achieve what they want. And I think that's such an important thing because when you're in your life at home, and I know this feeling, it is so hard to remove yourself from your life, even for a day. Every time I go to study in India, especially now that I have children and home and husband, I think, oh my God, am I insane? What am I doing? I can't believe I'm getting on a plane tonight and I'm leaving my family for, when I go to study, it's for a month. And everyone must think I'm totally nuts. Maybe I just shouldn't go. This seems ridiculous. And all it takes is for me to be there with my guru for 24 hours. And I think, oh, wow, I needed this way more than I realized. It gives me a chance to look inward in a life that constantly requires me to look outward and be present for other people. It gives me a chance to really be present with myself. And this is one of the reasons why I started leading retreats in the US, but also internationally. I recognize that not everyone is like me. Not everyone is ready to hop on a plane, go to India and find a guru and study for a 1 month minimum term. But many people will move heaven and earth to take one day to unplug and to look inward and to gain inspiration for their journey onward. And I know that when I have an experience like that, it sustains me for a long time going forward. And so I like to describe retreats to people as signposts on your journey. It can be easier for you to stick to your habits if you know you have a dose of inspiration coming up in the next couple of months. And then after you have that experience, it will sustain you for a while going forward. And then when you feel your inspiration start to wane, you know it's time to book another one. And they just keep you going because it goes back again to that we're not superheroes. We don't need to pretend that we are or that we're fulfilled doing everything on our own. It's okay to ask for supports. It's okay to take space for yourself to reconnect to the things you know, which are important.
So good. So good, Sara. If you guys like aren't ready to hop on a plane and go on a retreat with Sara, you're crazy.
It's my zone of genius. It's my zone of genius.
I can feel it. Oh, lady, I can feel it. Yeah. So why don't you let everyone know what you have coming up?
I have a 1-day yoga retreat on May 18th in Montauk, New York. And a big misconception is that people have to be advanced or experienced practitioners to go on a retreat. And that's just not true. I have beginners all the time. And I love it because often the retreat provides a space for them to start taking on a practice, something that seems really challenging to do in the thick of their busy lives. So all levels are welcome. What I really require of someone is that they are ready. They show up with a willingness to learn. They show up with a willingness to look at themselves and to receive whatever they're supposed to learn that day and move forward with it. And this retreat, I'm actually doing something different. I have found that everyone feels great on the retreat, and the students who I work with after the retreat have no problem integrating their practices into deeper levels. But the students who don't have a harder time. So 1 week after the retreat, we're actually having a group connection call where everyone who is at the retreat can take the time to connect with me, ask for the help that they need. It's almost going to be hot seat style where everyone can go around and say, this is going well, this isn't going well. And they can receive support from me, but also from the like-minded community that they now know and trust. So I'm really excited about that because for a long time, I felt a little bit like I was leaving those people hanging. And I'm glad that now I can serve them better and provide them with more support. So that's the next retreat that I have. I'm always cooking up another destination retreat because I love to travel and I love seeing people really remove themselves from their daily life and go to a different place. But it's not always required. 1 day showing up with commitment is a great way to start.
Yeah. And I'm bummed that I can't go on May 18th, but I have every intention of going in the fall. I know you're planning one for the fall. So
I am.
I'm going to make sure that I can get there because it sounds like really just a little piece of heaven to me.
It is.
So Sara, thank you so much. I want to finish by giving you a bit of time just to let people know how to connect with you. And then also, of course, ending with our final question, and we can start with that. We'll go backwards. Okay. In your life right now, in your practices, what is your inner voice saying to you?
Oh, this is such a great question. In my practices now, my inner voice is telling me that I'm worthy of this time and space. Mm-hmm. I'm in a place now where my practices, as I mentioned, have some new elements to them, which are challenging to me, which take more time than I had been spending. And of course, anyone can come up with reasons of, oh, but I should spend that time on this instead. Work life, mom life, whatever. And it's all in my head because the reality is I will still have a quiet house whether I take this time or not for myself. So just take it and stop making excuses around it.
I love it.
Go to that deeper place. Yeah.
So good. And how can we connect with you?
You can connect with me through my website, Sara Yoga, SaraYoga.com. I'm also on Instagram a lot. I love interacting with people on Instagram, and my handle is my full name, Sara Intonato, Intonato.
Mm-hmm. And we will put links to all of that, including Sara's upcoming retreat in the show notes and in the podcast app that you're listening to. So make sure you check those out if you're feeling a pull. Sara, many thanks to you. I feel like, and I don't know if my listeners will agree, I feel like almost like talking to you is like meditation. Like you just have this very calming, like sense about you. And like at one point I was like, oh wait, I got to say something. Like I was just I was like in this zone of like just being calm. And that is something that I know I crave in my life. So thank you so much for bringing that to us today.
I'm going to receive that. Thank you. I appreciate it very much.
Oh my gosh, I just love that so much. This was my favorite part. And this is something that since this interview I have been practicing. And that is setting the intention that my efforts today are enough. That is so beautiful. And that to me can open up so much possibility in your life, so many ways to try and fail and have that be okay. And when it comes to practicing, that's what really practicing is about. We talk about practice as a thing, but practicing as a verb is about doing something over and over and over again, regardless of how it went the first time. And it's just one of my favorite ways of being, really. When I think about it, it just opens up for so much possibility in our lives. And I want to encourage all of you to check out Sara's upcoming yoga retreat if that is something that you're interested in. I have to tell you, if it were not for my performance schedule with the symphony here in Syracuse, I would be there. And I have plans to go to her next retreat in the fall. And I'm really looking forward to that because I think that sometimes we just need that extra thing. We need like a day or 2 days to really hone in and focus. And that gives us energy to go forward. And so check out the link. It's in the show notes and in the podcast app that you're listening to. Also, if you're interested in setting up a discovery call with me to learn more about inner voice coaching your pocket, I want you to also check out the link in the show notes. And the live links are right there. You should be able to click right through your podcast app and it will take you right to the page where you can sign up for a discovery call with me. I want you to know you matter in this world. You matter. What you're doing every day makes a difference. And when you are showing up in your capabilities, in your strengths, practicing to hone into your authentic self, you are being exactly who you need to be in this world. And watch out, because amazing things are going to happen when you start to own that power that you have inside of you. Remember, you are worthy.